What's up? I'm back again. It's Marc Mozart together with Sennheiser for the second episode of How to Start Your Own Podcast. And today we're talking about your purpose. What do you want to talk about? And how do you want to talk about it? Are you interviewing people? Are you documenting what you're doing anyway? What's a great title for your podcast? How long should it be? All of this and a lot more now, so stay tuned.
What to talk about?
The best place to start with is your reality and your passion. What are you passionate about? Are you an expert in a specific field? Or maybe you are not an expert yet, but very interested in a specific topic and want to start learning about it or build a network. Starting a podcast can be a lot less complicated than you think. Let me tell you my own story. I've been a music producer for many years. Music producers are typically perfectionists, so for me the idea of putting out a spontaneous podcast was pretty challenging. What we did was simply documenting the daily morning meeting in the studio. We called it Studio Breakfast, put it out as a podcast, and to my surprise, only 2 weeks later, reached #1 in the music category of Apple Podcasts. And this is why we need to talk about different content strategies.
Content strategies.
The content strategy describes the way you're creating content. I believe that you need to find a strategy that comes natural to you and works best. Let's talk about content strategies for your podcast.
Interviews.
Recording interviews with interesting people is the most popular content strategy in podcasting. It works even if you don't know anything about a specific topic. Check out the Tim Ferriss podcast with guests ranging from Jamie Foxx, Tony Robbins to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Tim Ferriss has achieved over 300 million episodes downloaded. Over time, your podcast can become a huge library of expert interviews in your field. Of course, with every new episode, you are also getting exposed to the followers of your guests. So it's a content strategy that can build up your following very quickly.
Document, don't create.
You don't need a script. Documenting your business life or hobby means you're recording things that are happening anyway. This works great for people who talk a lot. Just clip on a microphone like this one and record what's happening. Content creation couldn't be easier. Check out the Gary V Audio Experience podcast. It's documenting the business life of American businessman Gary Vaynerchuk.
Talk shows.
Talk shows are a very popular content strategy for podcasts. Basically, two friends get together, have a chat about fashion, football, relationships, money, whatever. It works really well, so if that's for you, definitely try it. Also, check the links in the descriptions. We have put together a white paper for you with many links to recommended podcasts.
Q&A show.
The Q&A show requires you to receive questions from your audience. They could come through social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter works really well. And in your show, you're basically answering your listeners' questions. Maybe not a concept that works for the beginner because you need a bit of an audience, but definitely a great content strategy. Again, lots of examples in the white paper.
Frequency.
If you want to put out a podcast a day and you can keep up the quality, then I believe you will absolutely kill it in whatever market you are. But to be totally honest, if you're a beginner podcast producer and you can manage to put out a podcast a week or even every 2 weeks or every month, then that's totally great. I believe that the quality of content will always trump the frequency of your podcast.
Podcast name and picture.
Let's say my buddy Peter Smith, who is an excellent history teacher, wants to start his own history podcast. I think that's a very good idea. So he's sending me an email and let me read it to you. Hey Marc, I heard you know a little bit about podcasting. I've recorded my first episode and quickly wanted to hear your thoughts around my podcast name and picture. Any ideas, please let me know. It's called The Podcast by Peter Smith, about the role of the Dark Age in the history of the world. So let's have a look at it. Interesting. So here's what I think is wrong about this podcast name and picture. First of all, the name is much too long and it doesn't really say anything in the beginning. It will probably end up on any platform as the podcast by Peter Smith about the role or something. So that needs to be shortened, and also he doesn't have a picture at all. So let me go and find a cool picture for him. There are plenty of websites with license-free pictures, and in fact, the picture I'm choosing costs a little bit of money, but I think that's fine. You can decide for yourself, but I think it's definitely worth it. There are two situations where a great podcast picture is really useful. The first one is search and discover. If someone wants to get inspired and looks for a podcast in a specific genre, then if your picture makes your podcast jump out, that's absolutely great. The second one is if you already have a brand or a name and you're using the same picture or logo across different platforms, then of course it's also great. People will recognize your brand logo or your name or your picture or whatever. And that's really useful. It makes it easier for people again to discover you. Peter is a little bit of an old school guy who goes more by the books compared to me, but I think the Dark Age Dude is a strong brand name, and it still says the History Podcast, which is essentially what it's about. I think the most important aspect is to put your main keyword in the podcast name. So if your podcast is talking about German Shepherds, put that in the name. Same goes for social media marketing or music production. That simply helps anybody who is trying to search and discover a podcast to find what they are looking for.
I need help.
There are a lot of great websites out there with free or inexpensive tools and services that can help you to develop your own podcast cover and design. This one is called canva.com and it has a free photo editor. It can help you to find the right colors and font combinations for your podcast design and cover. Or you can just go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr with 2R at the end, and type podcast cover. You will find many freelancers and designers who are willing to design something for you for very little money. Another one of those services is called 99 Designs. Definitely check it out. That's it for today. In the next episode, we're having a look at and getting inspired by the world's most popular podcast. If you enjoyed this program, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, I'm very much looking forward to read them in the comments. Also, we have created a PDF podcast guide with lots more links and infos on podcasting. The download link is in the description.